Okay, so I was asked how you overclock in Noobs. So what you want to do is start up Noobs like this, and then when it prompts you to press the Shift key, press the Shift key, and here you go, you can see your operating systems here. So the ones that are installed on mine are the ones with the X's, so I've got Lacquer and I've got Raspbian. So if I go to Lacquer, you can see at the top edit config is showing. So if I tap on that and it shows you the config system, and all you do is you add the lines in here. I've got this line added because my Sony TV wants to, well, the Pi always seems to go to 4K, so I put this line in, which someone kindly gave me in some of my comments. And also, so the next line down, so you can see this is the bit that you need to add if you're overclocking, and obviously it depends. Overclock at your own risk. I use a Pi Moroni fan shim, and it's been absolutely fine even at 2147. But with Noobs, I don't think you can go up as high as that at the moment. Haven't tried it yet, but I've got a version of Raspbian with like a beta version of firmware, and it works fine at 2147, but I've got another video on that. So all you're doing is you're adding these lines. So over voltage is the power, so this is the CPU frequency and also the graphics frequency, and you can experiment with it, but obviously, as I say, do it at your own risk. But these settings I know work absolutely fine on Lacquer and on Raspbian for me. So that's the one for Lacquer, so I don't need to change anything. All you would do is press OK. And if I go into the Raspbian one, you'll see that I've got exactly the same in here as well. So again, you don't need to do this. This is what I have to do for my TV. But over voltage 6, ARM frequency 2000 megahertz, and GPU frequency 750. Press OK. And then if I hit exit now, and then start an operating system. So I'll start Raspbian. Okay, so that's started up. Now if I go into the terminal, and just to check what it's running, if you put in this script, sudo cat sys devices and so on, press return, and it will show you what clock speed you're going at. So it's confirming that I'm at 2000 megahertz. Okay, so I'll also show you how I did it on my Mac, which is just the previous way I was doing it, which also works with all sorts of operating systems, not just Noobs. The Noobs certainly is the easiest way of doing it because you're just clicking and changing it. Otherwise, you have to put it into a computer, find that config.txt and add in that script. So let's have a look at the Mac. Okay, so you can see the system boot and recovery folders come up. I've opened up the boot folder and gone for config.txt. And I'm adding in the 3 lines that use that basically overclock. And in this case, because it's on boot, it seems to overclock the Raspbian operating system. You need to go into the separate one to do Lacquer. Okay, so now I'll open up the system folder to change the config.txt there for Lacquer. It actually says LibreElec in there, but it is the Lacquer one in this case because I haven't got LibreElec put on there. So I've changed exactly the same values. I've gone for the 2000 CPU and 750 GPU. Save that and close that down. Okay, so this is Raspbian, just to check in terminal that the CPU is running at 2000, which it is. Okay, and I was asked to try Midnight Club 3 on PSP, so I thought I'd show it here at stock, 1500 megahertz. Now the sound will disappear because it's got a music soundtrack and I didn't want any copyright strike, but the sound was awful on this. Well, that bit sounded alright, but take my word for it, during the race there was a lot of slowdowns and it really wasn't worth having the sound on anyway. But the next overclock is 2000 megahertz, so at the end of this race I'll switch into that. Okay, so 2000 megahertz, 750 megahertz for the graphics. This was a lot better. So the sound on the intro was obviously a bit scratchy, but actually in the race and the music playing in the race was absolutely fine. Plus it was a lot more fluid and actually felt really nice to play in this mode. The next mode I'm going to use Raspbian and it's my overclocked to 2147 megahertz and 750 megahertz for the graphics. That's not in Noobs, so I've done that separately, and it was also running at 2 times PSP on the, I think it's the resolution. It's the setting that makes the graphics look a lot better, and you'll see it in the next video. Okay, so this is now my 2147 megahertz overclocked Raspbian operating system, not the one in Noobs, and you'll see it in a previous video with God of War. And I'm using the same settings I use for God of War, although I had to turn on rendering mode into buffered for it to work. But also, this is looking a lot better because the rendering resolution is 2 times PSP. So it's putting a lot more strain on the system, but it still plays. But actually I preferred it in the lower resolution on this. With a driving game, you really can't get away with very much. And also the frame skip was on 1, whereas I didn't have frame skip on the 2000 megahertz one. So yeah, actually, although it looks better, it wasn't as good. I'll let you hear some of the audio. Okay, next step was to lower the desktop resolution in Raspbian down to 720. This sometimes seems to make a difference to the overall performance, and then launch PSP again. And this ran even better, but ignore the frames per second because they're definitely not right. Yeah, so this is 720, the desktop running at 2147 CPU, 750 GPU. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. Hope you like this. Please like and subscribe.